All right. We are back with the Addictively Speaking podcast. My name is James. I'll be your host. Going to run you through some stuff today. It's going to be called the Intro to Recovery. So, what this is going to be is just a little bit of, it's just going to touch base on some things. Um, so, I know when I first got clean and I stopped drinking, I really had no idea what recovery was, what it meant, anything really. I just was getting sober, right? And I think like that's the first thing is that you just have to focus on your sobriety and learning about recovery and what it entails kind of comes later. So for me, it was more about staying sober, one day at a time type stuff. I mean, I didn't go to any 12 step, but it still applies. It's one day at a time. It's doing things um, daily to keep yourself sober. So as I got further along in it, you know, you get your milestones like your first year. You start to feel clearer in your head, your thoughts are more normal, your brain starts to reset itself, and you kind of come back to who you were before you started drinking or the drugs. Like you kind of get pieces of yourself back, that you may have lost or they may have been numbed or suppressed. Um, so like dealing with that and like going through these things, like you kind of have to learn how to like because my coping mechanism was alcohol. So it's like my coping mechanism is can't be my coping mechanism anymore. So anything that's stressful or when I get depressed or when I'm struggling with life in general, I can't just turn to alcohol to numb everything. I have to actually find new coping behaviors. I have to find things to, help, you know, put me in a better frame of mind. So I started going to the gym quite often. Working out was quite a good release and escape. It helped manage stress and anxiety and depression because it releases all the good, chemicals in your brain and it gives you like a, a high, doesn't it? So yeah, I was doing that and running early on in recovery. I found mixed martial arts, jujitsu, because I basically, I thought to myself like, oh, hey, you're a guy who likes to go out and get into lots of bar fights and, thinks he's tough. Like tough people do things like this. Like, why don't I give it a try? Why don't I see what that's about? So I went in and did it. I started it before I quit drinking fully. Um, so it was kind of like just to see. And then when I quit completely, I kind of immersed myself in it, like boxing, kickboxing. I just like the idea of fighting because I fought a lot. So I just thought, why not? This is natural. You're angry. It's a better outlet than getting into a fight and getting arrested. I was training for a purpose. I started like training hard and losing weight. And so, like, there was a lot of things, like positive things that were happening in my life, which helped fuel my early recovery. And I didn't know, obviously that I was even in recovery because I had no idea what recovery was really. So, it's all these things that are building this foundation in recovery that were going to shape the rest of my time recovering. It'll be things that I use for forever to keep myself where I'm at. So I I started doing jujitsu and boxing and kickboxing, and I trained very very hard for months and months and months, and I decided to enter tournaments and test my abilities, and these positive rewards, like you're making positive changes in your life. Like I won medals at grappling tournaments. I trained with guys who were quite disciplined, and they helped me as well open up my mind and look at things differently. So these things all helped push my recovery forward. So, I get 1 year in, my life is just so much different. I'm being able to hold a job. I'm being looked at my jobs as a valuable member of the team. Like I have a lot to offer. So these things are all helping me positive after positive after positive because I live so much in the negative that it really affects your mindset. And so getting all these positive things really like propels me forward in my recovery. It makes me think like, oh man, shit, like all these good things are happening in my life. Like that's amazing. Like all I had to do was stop drinking and like things just turn themselves around. So it gave me more, um, like reinforced the fact that what I was doing was the cause of a lot of the issues, that it wasn't me per se, but it was the drinking. So removing it, a lot of positive things happen, which kind of is like this domino effect, and it kind of pushes you forward. And so yeah, I kind of kept doing these things and running and challenging myself and kind of setting goals and expectations, on my training and my running and all kind of stuff like that. So that way, when I achieved something, it was that much better. So I did that for a long time. And then, things like relationship things started to change in my life. I met someone, um, just out of the blue, uh, and it was kind of like a fate thing. Uh, she came into my life and then changed my life forever for the better. Uh, I can't even explain how much meeting her and, um, getting to know her and just getting outside of this little box that I was in my entire life. And, you know, I kind of had the confidence now and from all the positive things that were happening in my early recovery to, you know, if I felt something, I felt like I could chase it, which was huge because before I would have just said, fuck it, whatever, it's not worth it. Or I'd have got drunk and ruined it and it would have all went away. So, positive things in relationships, positive things in life, these all push me forward in my recovery. And then I started getting into my recovery further. I was like 3 years, 4 years in, starting to see like these bigger milestones, like 4 years sober or whatever. I think it was about my third year or 3.5 years, when I had a huge test. I lost my mom, and you know that type of shit. That's a trigger. That's a trigger right there. You know, losing somebody that you love, that I have a special relationship with her. My mom was my everything. She was my go-to for everything. So losing her was like a devastating blow. And at the same time, my dad is suffering horribly from dementia. So it's literally losing two parents at one time. And, you're pushed to that brink, you're pushed to that limit. So there's tons of triggers happening. And I stayed strong. I stayed, steadfast. And I got to look straight ahead and I coped. I coped with everything. I leaned on the people I needed to lean on. I got support from the people that I needed support from, and I got through it, you know? And then that's not to say that that happens for everybody. I mean, triggers are tough and they're difficult. And that'll be, an episode down the line. We're going to talk about triggers. I'm going to talk about things that push us in that negative direction. So I got past this, and I worked really hard to process the grief. I did struggle, but I had to go to counseling. I had to go to grief counseling. I had to do these things to help myself move forward. So it's not to say that I breezed through it because I was 3 years sober. Um, I did struggle. I did have tough times, but I got through them with the new coping stuff that I was using, to process information and try to, um, stay sober, and then you get to these milestones where you're 6 years, you're 7 years and stuff like that. And, it just becomes part of your life. There's still stuff like now, like I used to be okay with like going out to a bar or stuff. And like when people are drinking and I kind of stay away from that now because I don't really enjoy it. I don't like to be around people that are excessively drunk. It causes me a little bit of anxiety. I always think that there's going to be a fight, or there's going to be an issue, or there's going to be something that triggers me. Um, so I just try to avoid that now. But I was all right with it. Um, Leading up to that, I was pretty strong that I could be around people that were drinking heavily, or because I knew what was at stake. I knew the cost of any type of slip up. So I always keep that in my mind when I'm thinking about these things, or there's triggers, or there's things like that. I always keep thinking about, what's at stake. What do you have to lose? For me, it's my family. It's everything. It's my life. And I'm not willing to give that up, not for anything. So I keep going. I keep staying steadfast and keep moving forward. In my recovery, I think it was probably around my fifth year. I had a friend who was also he got sober um, from some heavier drugs, and he wanted to start like a advocacy group to, you know, help change the stigma surrounding addiction and recovery. And he started it was called the Skook Recovers, and I was a huge part of that. I shared my story. I was very open and honest, and I think that resonates with people. I mean, the honesty of the whole situation is, you know, you, people tell you their truth. They bare their soul, their scars. They show you the open wounds, and hopefully that resonates with somebody who's in addiction and needs to hear these things because it might help them turn everything around. And that's all I ever hoped for, was to now be able to give back, because I saw so much good come from my recovery, and I just wanted to help. I just wanted to help other people. I still want to help other people. That's the reason I've done this, is because I want to be able to touch people's lives and hopefully change them for the better, because I know it's possible. I've witnessed it in myself. I've witnessed it in other people. But you have to be dedicated. You have to be accepting. You have to be, you have to surrender yourself to something. Whether that's a 12-step program or just solidarity in yourself, that you can change yourself and that you're strong enough to push forward. So I started working with the Skook Recovers and did tons of amazing, amazing things that I truly, truly miss in my life sometimes, because I got to go into I love, it's weird. I like to do public speaking. I'm not genuinely afraid to speak in public. So I did a lot of public speaking with them, and interviews and things like that. Did some podcast and radio stuff uh, with some groups and people in Schuylkill County to help raise awareness for drug and alcohol addiction and recovery. We did a lot of community work, rebuilding playgrounds, and helping clean up rubbish at certain places to help beautify the community. And it was all people in recovery. It was all these people, and there was a lot of them were in early recovery, so it was really helping them, build that confidence that I already had and that my friend already had. We kind of helped these people realize that you can be pillars of the community. You can be looked at in a positive light, because a lot of times when you hear, junkie or addict or whatever, it's so negative. The connotation is so negative that um, it just sticks with people forever, and it really pulls them down because that's what they get classed as, and you kind of have to fight to grow out of it, you know? And for me, alcoholism isn't really, in where I'm from, isn't really viewed as, you know, it doesn't have the really bad stigma like, being a heroin addict or being addicted to crack or meth or whatever. Um, those drugs are a lot harder, and people kind of class them away from what alcoholism is. But, for me, it could have killed me just the same as those drugs kill other people, so I look at it as the same, but I just think that the stigma isn't as hard to break out of. So I wanted to help, you know, shed a lot of positive light on these people. And yeah, so I got to speak at Upper Dolphin Drug Day twice. There's nothing harder than standing in front of a group of like 10th graders, so like 15, 16-year-old kids, because, you know, they're super judgy. They're teenagers, they're brutal. So being able to speak in front of them was a huge boost in confidence, because if you can speak in front of, a bunch of teenagers about how shit your life was and all the bad things you've done, and they can embrace it. I mean, we got lots of positive feedback from the school, from kids personally sending emails to the group and stuff like that, saying how much it's affected them. And, you know, I mean, these things are really huge achievements. I mean, like, I think personally, if this podcast can help one person steer themselves in a different direction in life, I mean, that's huge. It's a huge accomplishment. I'll never know if it does or it doesn't. Um, you know, hopefully somebody will shoot me a message or leave a comment and say, "Hey, this has really changed my life." I mean, that's ultimately what it's about, is helping people um, realize that there's more to life, that you can recover, that you can achieve all the things that you thought you couldn't. I mean, I did. I've done it. I've done it. I'm living proof. All the things I thought I'd never have, I have right now, which is, sometimes it just blows my mind that I got to this point. But again, the battle for me is never over, because there's always, you know, I'm always in recovery. I'll always be in recovery. And I have to accept that, and I have to live my life in a certain manner. So that's at the forefront of everything, is that my recovery is every day. Every day I wake up is another day sober. It's another day clean. It's another day I get to spend with my family and my loved ones. It's another day I get to, you know, do things, do positive things, and whatever that may be. So recovery, in the beginning I had no idea what it was, and now I kind of have such a better picture of recovery, what it means to me, uh, what it's done for my life, and what I've given back to recovery, because I feel like I owe recovery a great deal. Like, I owe it to myself to give to other people, whether that's knowledge or, help in any way I can, getting people into 12 step or pointing them towards rehabs or anything like that. So the rest of this season, I'm going to do a bunch of other things with some interviews, some guests. We're going to talk about triggers and, drug and alcohol counseling, just a plethora of different things to help close out this season. And hopefully it'll help you guys get a better understanding and a better grasp of, addiction and recovery, and what that all means. And when you see these people that are out struggling, that be a bit kinder to them, and kind of, um, don't look at them in such a negative light. They're just a person that needs help, and they need guidance, and hopefully someday they find that and they don't end up dead, because there are people that love them. There are people that would miss them. They're just not, you know, a junkie. They're somebody's family. And that's what you got to think about. So this is the intro to recovery. We're going to close it out, keeping this a bit shorter. I'm working with a new mic, and I'm just trying to see what it's all about. So thank you guys for listening. Have a great day. And this is it. Bye.